It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we feeling?
I'm good, man.
Whoa. I was looking down for a second. Did you give us the locked on point to the camera?
Well, I happen to be
Drive?
stopped in traffic at this moment. So
There we go. We kind of talked about yesterday what we were planning on talking about for a good portion of today. It was a big talking day, Steelers practice. Justin Fields talking, Russell Wilson talking, the coordinators talking, talked to Cam, talked to Joey. A lot of people talking today to Alan Saunders. We also got a question about Calvin Austin we can get into, some injury updates, and interest in a receiver, Mike Williams. We mentioned it already. Diana Rossini put out there one of three. She listed three teams. The Steelers were one of them that have been in contact with the Jets and will be in the Mike Williams market. So we'll get into all that today. Alan, to be honest with you, the first thing that I wanted to do, like I planned on doing this immediately when I saw the quote, I just want to give props. I want to give some flowers to Justin Fields, not the player, but just the quote that came out, the way that he talked about his situation, in a situation that I think a lot of people would have dealt with differently. I thought that he handled it very professionally. I thought that we really got to see that side of Justin come out in that setting today. You've talked about him, in a glowing way in terms of just how he carries himself in general. And I think a lot of people had a good idea of the person that we were talking about. But man, just reading that, I'm excited that we have this person in the organization.
I'll tell you this, Mitty. I think for the first time today, I've said lots of good things about Justin Fields, the person, since the moment he walked in the building. In fact, I think I defended him against what I considered some strange criticism of his level of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like back in OTAs. But I think feel like for today, for the first time, I understand why all the weird Bears fans still follow him around. I get it. He's a guy that you want to root for. He's a guy that you hope good things happen to. Man, what a great quote. I actually talked to Justin a little bit. He talked to us this morning before practice. Talked to him a little bit this afternoon. I just wanted to share with him the overwhelming sentiment from my readers, commenters, people on Twitter, people on YouTube, of just absolute love for what he had to say and the way he said it. I wanted to make sure that he was feeling some of that. So I passed it along from all you to him because I thought it was really cool. Not just that he said it the way he said it, but the appreciation from the fan base for that. I thought it was really cool.
Right. I feel like a lot of people in that situation would just kind of say, it's out of my hands. I did what I feel like I could do. The decision's not up to me. And if they decide that that's the way they want to go forward, so be it. But he was critical of himself, saying, I don't think I played good enough. If I'm being real with you, if I'm being real with myself, I don't think that I did play well enough. I think if I did, there wouldn't be any sort of questions about who should be playing and who should not. At the end of the day, we got a few wins, of course. I'm glad about that. But there's areas that I could do better. I'm just going to continue to work on those and continue to get better. I mean, that's as good as it gets right there in terms of self-evaluation at this level.
And it's true. He had an opportunity to retire Russell Wilson and just say, no, you're never getting this job back. And he didn't take it. And as much as that has to hurt, that's true, just an incredible amount of self-awareness and respect to him for being willing to say it. A lot of athletes are not. A lot of athletes are not willing to say the truth about their performance in that way. And I was really impressed by that.
I want to talk too about Arthur Smith's kind of, how he talked about Justin, because it's not just, the fans, it's not just his teammates, it's not just the people that cover him that are seeing this. Arthur talked about Justin as well. And he said, that's why you love working with Justin. That's real. That's not just some cliche, some QB guru told him to say. This is just who he is.
Yeah. It's Justin. And the other part of this too, is that it's not just Justin either. Russ, same thing. Hey, what can you do to make this offense better? And his first answer was first of all, Justin did a really good job. And the two of them actually quoted the same Bible verse today.
Wow.
Which feels and Justin said that he thought it was a coincidence that he didn't know that
Well, I was just saying,
happened.
and I don't want to like have this come off as a joke because it's not. I do wonder if they have times where they get together because they both seem very connected in their faith. Like I wonder if there are times where they get together and like study the Bible.
Well, I will make this a joke then. I just wonder if there's one page of the Bible in the Steelers quarterback room. That's it. That's all they've got to work with.
There we go.
Just got one. That's all there is. One James. That's the beginning and the end there.
No, but I do wonder if that is like. I'm sure they have conversations about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. They seem to really. I mean, I don't know that they're friends like outside of the facility. There's a big age gap there. There's obviously, but I think they've both been incredible professionals about the entire situation.
And Justin probably wants to bump some Future from time to time, and he knows he wouldn't be able to do that if he was around Russ. So, like, yeah, it's probably like strictly a facility thing. I want to take a hard turn here and then come back to more conversation that came out of today. But I feel like early in the episode, we always kind of like to get to the injury update stuff. So I want to take a hard turn to that portion of it and then come back to people that you talked to today. Steelers Thursday practice report, DNP, Nick Herbig, Zach Frazier, Cordero Patterson, Cam Hayward just resting. So you talked about Patterson, felt like this probably wasn't going to be the week. I'd say DNP still on Thursday. He hasn't practiced in a while now. I not officially rolled out yet. I assume that he will be, though. The other ones within there had already been. Limited participation. Larry Ogunjobi, there he is. Limited Larry. Rest. No need to worry there. Not groin, not anything there. Dylan Cook returning in a limited capacity to practice, though he wasn't activated yet, opening up that 21-day window. DeMonte KZ getting back on the field. And then Roman Wilson popping up with a hamstring as a limited participant. And that's probably the one that people are going to have questions about on this report, Alan.
Yeah, so we'll start with Cook. He is eligible to be returned from the injured reserve. They opened his 21-day window today. A little curious that it was today and not yesterday, but then you think, there's a bye week in there, so I don't know if that just had to do with their future practice. Looking at like where day 21 lands. But I think he could. I mean, he told me he felt like he could play this week if he had to. He doesn't know what their plan is yet. They're only carrying 52 players on the active roster. So, and they cut Ade Ogundeji. So I mean, he ended up back on the. They put him from the 53 for a reason. I assume we're going to see Dylan elevated, if not this week, definitely next week.
Okay.
I think probably this week. DeMonte KZ back out there after being a DNP the last 3 practices, 2 last week and the first one this week. I thought he looked pretty good. There's some video, if you go one video up on the YouTube platform of him running around. I thought he looked fine. We'll see if he's able to go, but I would lean towards optimism for KZ. And then Roman Wilson, early in practice, pulled up from a route, sort of classic hamstring injury, pose. Was doing some jogging. I asked him about it. He said it's nothing major. Now, nothing major just means, he wasn't limping around as I talked to him after practice. So he's okay. Will that, bring his availability this Sunday into question? Absolutely. You're not going to play anybody at less than 100% to play 5 snaps anyway. So, I mean, it certainly could cause him to miss a game, maybe even 2 games. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be some sort of long-term or major injury. But man, they're piling up for him. It's starting to look like sort of a lost rookie season for number 10.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The term red shirt. It's basically what this first season has been up to this.
He is eligible for you get 4 games in college football now, and you can keep your red shirt. He's only used 1 so far. He's still eligible for the red shirt.
There we go. And then full participation from Najee Harris today with the ribs. So maybe I was right. Maybe that was what he was having for dinner. Yeah, I think that was just his way of telling us what was on the menu. Outside linebacker.
Here's what the beat thinks about Najee Harris's rib injury. He talked to the media today. Now, I was not in the scrum, but nobody even bothered to ask him about it. So there you go.
There we go. And then Michael Pruitt, full participation, who could get a helmet. I want to ask about that one just because I wonder what the helmet math there would be. Like, would it just be Rodney Williams out of the lineup, Michael Pruitt in, as simple as that, you think?
I would think, but they have a little bit of flexibility, a little bit more flexibility this week than they did last week because not so many people are out with injuries. I haven't really done the math yet on if there's a way to dress all 5 tight ends. I would assume not, that they will just dress Pruitt and scratch Rod.
Okay. My thing was I was wondering if that would be the spot with Roman. If Roman can't go, do they elevate another receiver or just say, hey?
Well, yeah, they could. So if they scratch Roman, then they could dress 5 tight ends, or they could bring up Brandon Johnson from the practice squad.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, that was the hard turn.
Well,
We're making
basically a wide receiver anyway. I mean,
that's true.
Skinny tight end.
Yeah. And maybe
he's not.
We'll
I got a story to tell about
week.
yesterday. I don't think I told the story yesterday. So we're in the indoor yesterday at practice, and the receivers are running like out breaking routes. So they sometimes, if the throw's a little bit high or whatever, they kind of come like crashing through where we're standing on the sideline. You kind of got to look out. And some pit players, I think there were some underclassmen, were walking through the indoor like on their way to or from practice or whatever, as Darnell Washington kind of came crashing through after making a catch, and a bunch of us kind of had to like get out of the way, and they were behind us, so like we moved and he just kind of came like right through and sort of right in front of this group of young pit players, and I overheard the one say to the other, "That's a tight end." Yeah, like just in absolute awe of the size of Darnell Washington. I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah. No, I'm assuming they thought he was an offensive tackle, probably, which is what a lot of Steelers fans have suggested happen with Darnell Washington. But
yeah, I just thought it was really funny. But yeah, where were we before I got us way off track?
I wanted to take, so we started out, I obviously had to give Justin his flowers, talked a little bit about what Art had to say about Justin, then we went with the injury stuff. So we haven't really dove into the other conversations that came out of today. But since I mentioned Arthur Smith's name, I guess we can go there first. So other than what he had to say about Justin specifically, what else did Arthur Smith have to say?
Yeah, made it very clear that Mike Tomlin is making the decision about who's going to play at quarterback, which I think is interesting and mostly false, but interesting. Look, I mean, there are lots of advantages for Arthur Smith pawning this decision off on Mike Tomlin. For one, like he has to deal with both quarterbacks, and so it is a lot easier to make Tomlin out to be the bad guy, and he can just say, "Yeah, hey, it's not my choice, man. We're just going to work here and do our thing."
And do you think Tomlin is saying that, like telling him to do so? Like, is that kind of the division of that? Like, you make the choice, you can pawn it on me.
I just think in general, like we talked a lot about Arthur Smith being a guy that might possibly be someone who is better suited to be an offensive coordinator than a head coach. And like the vibe I get from Art is very much relief that this is not on his plate right now. That he has someone that he can just say, "Hey, that's Mike's deal. I'm out. I'm just calling the plays, man. Don't ask me." He seems very, very happy to be able to do that. And I don't think things went particularly well with him in the Atlanta media. And so, like, I think he's very happy to avoid all contentiousness with us and just say, "Hey, that's a Mike T thing. I'll run whoever goes. I'll call the plays for whoever he decides is the quarterback." Like Mike Tomlin is not especially involved in the Steelers offense ever. He's been a heck of a lot less involved in the offense this year than he was, say, when Matt Canada was the coordinator. I find it very hard to believe that Arthur Smith is not heavily involved in the decision as to who's going to start at quarterback, if not nearly solely involved in the decision as to who's going to start at quarterback. It's just convenient for him to be able to push that decision off onto Tomlin, and Tomlin frankly relishes in the role of being criticized for his decisions anyway, so he does not care.
Yeah. No, I thought that was interesting when he said that, and I thought it was interesting kind of the way that people were taking it. But to your point, yeah, like Steelers Twitter, there's a good portion of them that are just solely there, created their accounts basically just to bash Tomlin anyway. So they're kind of taking that opportunity to do so with this one way or another.
Yeah, Tomlin's perfectly fine with that arrangement. He's paid very well to take the abuse.
Did Art have anything to say that wasn't, related to the quarterback stuff, whether it be Justin,
No,
Russ,
I tried to ask a question. I tried to ask a question that was not related to the quarterbacks and immediately got shouted down by someone else who wanted to ask something else about the quarterbacks. So no, we got no non-quarterback questions from Arthur Smith this week.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the other quarterback then, Russell Wilson. He also spoke today.
Actually, let's go somewhere else first, because I wanted to tie in. Let's go to Najee Harris next. Can we do that?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I was actually not in the scrum with Najee Harris, as I said, but he had some strong words about Justin Fields. And do you have the quote?
See, I missed this. I missed this, but I can find it. I said I missed Najee Harris saying anything about Justin. But I'm sure I can find it.
Brooke tweeted the entire exchange. You can probably find it pretty easily.
Okay.
But it was a pretty impassioned defense of Justin Fields, and essentially saying that like the problems on offense are about 11 guys, not one, and that we shouldn't focus so much on who the quarterback is.
I mean, this is like a couple paragraphs here that he put. This is like one of those long YouTube comments that we get here. All right, so buckle in for this one. This is what he had to say. We got to execute the game plan. I mean, you guys focus so much on one player as if it's the thing. It's all 11 of us. You guys are worried about the quarterback. I'm worried about 11 quarterback in the line and the receivers and the running back. You know what I mean? So Russ being out there, I mean, he's got to do the same thing that Justin's doing. Justin's been doing a great job for us. This is the best start that I think I had throughout my years being here. So I saw some comments Justin said about him not doing the best that he can, but I think that he did the best he possibly can. I think he did a really good job, and he shouldn't. Well, I know what he was trying to do, but just me saying publicly that we're all proud of him. Don't be so hard on yourself. We got your back. I got your back. But I think that all 11 of us got to pitch in and be in there. We need both of them for sure.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting on a couple levels. One, I just think, again, like, solid professional job of lifting up your teammate there, Najee Harris. One. Two, I think, sadly, this is going to, like, it's funny because Najee's point is it's not about the quarterback. Stop putting it all on the quarterback. And I think the first thing that a lot of people are going to think or point to after seeing this is there was a report the other day from a national writer. I think you said it was Albert Breer. Who said, there are people in the building that wanted to be Justin Fields and not Russell Wilson. And so by standing up and sticking up for Justin Fields, now people are going to be like, see, Najee doesn't want him to change quarterbacks. And like the exact opposite of what he was going for with that statement.
Sure. Yeah, it's just taking it the complete opposite direction where, now he's taking a hard stance, even though that's the opposite of what he was doing. But sure, I mean, people, and the thing is too,
does not matter.
Yeah. Regarding Albert Breer,
it could be either of them. Yeah.
I'm sure that is the case. I'm sure that there are people that feel one way or another, and I don't expect that necessarily to get out, but of course they do.
Well, like, here's the thing. Every player on that team is on that team because someone in that organization pounded the table and went to bat for them to be on that team. And so, of course, there are people in the organization that are going to prefer one over the other. Like, that is the case with almost every situation.
I feel like it's
where you have a competitive scenario at a position. I'm sure there are people in that team that think that Jalen Warren should play more than Najee Harris. I'm sure there are people in that team that think that Roman Wilson should be playing instead of Scotty Miller. and Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson, like 100%, because those people are why those guys are on the team. That's always the case. To think that there's some like large, serious group of Steelers players that would prefer and sort of loudly, vocally, problematically prefer Justin Fields to Russell Wilson, I'll just say this. The people that most people would consider the most important players on the Steelers team spent their offseason recruiting Russell Wilson to the Steelers. They did not spend their offseason advocating to trade for Justin Fields. So, like, I have a real hard time believing that there's some schism here in the Steelers locker room where they're just, I'm sure lots of people are very happy about Russell Wilson being the starting quarterback. I'm sure there are people that would have preferred Justin Fields too, but it's not like it's unnatural in any way.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I kind of want to say that would kind of blend together with that, tie in, if you will, and it goes back to a conversation that we had too. I also really feel like whether it's Najee's comments, whether it's Justin's comments, I'm curious if Russell said anything. That's what I was kind of asking you about. Maybe we'd go there next if there was anything to come of that. I think that it really highlights again the people that they've brought into this organization, and that the people that think that there is a culture issue in general within this locker room are way off base.
Absolutely. Yeah. Russ was extremely complimentary of Justin Fields. He was talking about being, thankful to still get an opportunity, understands that, they're not guaranteed to him at this stage in his career after what has happened. And so, yeah, I mean, this is a really good locker room. It's a really good, it's probably one of the best locker rooms I've covered, and just in terms of guys pulling in the same direction, very few knuckleheads, very few guys causing problems. It's a really good group. I was actually talking to a Steelers staff member before the trip to Vegas and asking like, hey, do you have to be worried about like guys going out, guys getting in trouble? Like, it is Las Vegas, right? And he was like, this group? No, not at all. Like, and it was just, it was almost a flippant dismissal of like the idea that these guys are going to cause a lot of problems. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's a group with pretty solid character.
Was there anything else that came out of the conversations today? We didn't mention anything about TA, but I know he's normally not the most. You don't get the most out of him, I feel like, on a Thursday basis. You mentioned Cam and Joey in there that you talked to as well. So anything really that you took away from any of those?
Yeah. So a couple things. We'll start with Joey. He felt like he learned a lot from going up against Davante Adams last year. If you remember, that was kind of one of the first games that he really got some good exposure. Did Levi Wallace get hurt in that game? Is that what happened?
I don't know. He had Levi Wallace had 2 picks in that game.
Oh,
he had one at the very end, but like they were getting torched by like Davante Adams had like 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I feel like that was the first game that Joey really got some run. And so, he really felt like he learned a lot from that game and is really looking forward to kind of getting another shot at him now as sort of a measuring stick, like, oh, here's where I was last year and now here's where I am now. So I thought that was kind of cool. He seemed to suggest that he thinks he's getting Davante Adams, but there's some uncertainty from the Steelers about how much they're going to use him, just getting to the Jets this week. And so, Joey said, like, they got him for a reason. We know they want to use him. He's played with Aaron Rodgers his whole career. It's basically an Aaron Rodgers offense. So, like, their thought, it seems like the Steelers are thinking that Davante Adams is going to play a whole bunch and that Joey will get that assignment, but are sort of hedging that bet with some preparation in different directions in case that's not the way it turns out. And then I talked to Cam and I talked to Nick Herbig also about Braylon Allen, just because he's one of my favorite players in the NFL. And like, I get to decide what I talk about. So
That's true.
It's very interesting to me. Breece Hall's a home run hitter. He's one of these running backs that you can line up anywhere. He's just as good of a receiver as he is a running back. Very, very dangerous player. And then Braylon Allen is just a brute force physical destructor of worlds that comes in as the change. Like, generally when you think of the change of pace back, it's like, oh, you have like a big bruiser and then you bring in this little scat back on third down who runs away from you. And the Jets have it the entire opposite way, where it's like, tire yourselves out chasing Breece Hall all around the formation and then prepare to be smashed around by like this thing that looks like it was carved out of granite. And I really, first of all, just enjoy the heck out of that way of approaching the game of football. Braylon Allen is a really fun player. He's a handful. I think this is probably, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you disagree. I think this is probably the Steelers' toughest run challenge, just in terms of the abilities of the backs. Indy has a good back and a really good offensive line, and the Jets' offensive line is not good. But just in terms of the backs themselves, I think this is probably the toughest test.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even if you're looking at just like the teams that have given them trouble or that you think would give them trouble, like they're coming up later in the schedule. Chargers are a good running team as well, or at least were going into that week 3 matchup when we had them. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about guys that can change the pace that way, and the other thing that's weird about Braylon Allen, the way that you just described him, I feel like people, unless you have watched him, wouldn't take this away, but he can catch the ball too. Like, don't necessarily ask him to do it a whole ton, but he can do it. He has a receiving touchdown this year for the Jets. Like, they can deploy him in that manner as well. So, yeah, they can really throw a lot of different looks at you with both those guys.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know that he hasn't gotten a lot of carries the last couple of games. So I don't know that, like, he's going to be a huge part of their game plan, but I kind of hope he is.
Especially now getting Devontae Adams, if he is going to be like
a lot of mouths to feed there. It's this Jets team, man. I'm telling you, like, the sum does not equal the total of the parts. There's going to be a game where they figure it out because they're too good not to. I understand the offensive line isn't, but if you're the Steelers, you just hope it's not this one. And then kind of the TA conversation, I thought he kind of provided an interesting link between a couple of different things we've been talking about a lot. We've been talking a lot about how they're near the bottom of blitz rate, and they're also been playing a lot of zone coverage. And you kind of talked about how those things go hand in hand. Obviously, when you blitz, you're playing more man than you are zone. And was asked about the interceptions from Dante Jackson. D-Jax has 3. I think he only had 2 over the entire last 2 seasons at Carolina. So that's a huge change. Yeah. And, I asked him, like, yeah, you don't get those playing man, right? Like, that's part of the equation. The Steelers have had all these red zone turnovers, and you can sort of directly tie that to the amount of zone defense they've been playing, not necessarily red zone, but just inside the 30-yard line. I really feel like it's where they've really done well. Is that a lot of the interceptions are happening? Like, think about every Dante Jackson interception. He's been facing the quarterback every time. He's not in trail, like going up and making a great play on the ball. He's facing the quarterback, playing zone, making a read and going and making a play. And I think their turnovers have been really directly tied to the amount of zone they've been playing. And unless you're going to run zone blitzes, which are awkward at times, generally zone means 4-man rush. And so, I don't know. I think it was an interesting addition to that conversation.
I feel like, now that I'm looking at the numbers, I feel like we've kind of talked about this being a little bit of a rejuvenation this year for Dante Jackson already. You mentioned the interceptions. His career high was 4. That was his rookie year in 2018. 3, obviously, his second highest total, but he hasn't done it until this year, since 2020. Like, his first 3 years in the NFL, like, the ball production was there. Because even from like a pass deflection standpoint, he's already at 6 this year. He had 8 over the last 2 years combined. And that's, he's already halfway to his highest is 11 in that department. And we're not even halfway through this. So, like.
And Joey's strength, I think everyone would say, is man coverage. And the fact that they've been able to play him against strength and play him more zone than man and still get pretty good results out of him he's not getting all these interceptions, but he's still playing pretty well. Like he's had maybe one game where somebody got the best of him, but I feel like he's done pretty well against some pretty tough assignments and not even playing necessarily the defense that's called to his strength. I think it's a really good sign for him long term too. I think Aaron Rodgers is another defense that another kind of quarterback that you do not want to blitz. Like they're probably going to sit in zone a whole bunch. And I think it'll look a lot like the Colts game where they'll be in zone and it'll be up to those underneath defenders to play better than they did because Rodgers is going to take what you give him. And their spot drop against the Colts was leaky. They may have to play some zone man under where the linebackers are in man, but everybody else is in zone or something. But I think that'll be the sort of critical matchup here. I really like the Steelers' outside corners against even what is a pretty good Jets wide receiver group.
Last thing, speaking of that Jets wide receiver group, before we get out of here, Diana Rossini, The Athletic, putting out Steelers one of 3 teams linked to current Jets wide receiver Mike Williams. A lot of people have thought he would be the guy on his way out now with Devontae Adams getting there. Never really seems like he's gotten on the same page with Aaron Rodgers running the show there. What are your thoughts on Mike Williams and the idea of the Steelers acquiring him?
I would do this in a heartbeat. I don't think he will cost very much. He will not cost very much in money. Any team that takes him on is going to pay him like $850,000. There's some incentives he can get to, but they're not like it's like $500,000 a pop, and I don't think they're particularly likely either. It's a very good deal in terms of the money. I don't think it'll cost a lot. Maybe like a late round pick swap or a 7th or something like that. Like I don't think he's going to cost a lot, and so. I would absolutely do that. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all of receiver moves. I don't think getting Mike Williams would necessarily mean the Steelers should be out of business. But I talked this morning about how hard it is to make a trade in the NFL. If you can get Mike Williams, get him. And then, hey, if you happen to be able to go get Darius Slayton or DeAndre Hopkins in 2 more weeks, great. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's what I was going to say too. Other than I wasn't necessarily thinking about another move afterwards, but just thinking about like how difficult it is to get trades done if you can make this move for, you said it exactly, because they have 2 7ths. So I was thinking a 7th round pick or a late round pick swap. I'd probably
3 7ths.
3 7ths. For some reason I thought it was 2.
Yeah.
Part with a 7th or do a late round pick swap. I don't know that I'm interested in giving up like a pick other than a 7th straight up for him. I don't know that he has been that type of player.
The Steelers can't trade their 6th, so I thought maybe trade their 5th and get the Jets 6th back. Like that's about the highest I would go.
That makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, I think too the other part of this is Mike Williams. I think part of that is not being on the same page with Rodgers. I think part of it is still too like just coming back from that injury still. Like I just don't think that he's looked. So I think you might be banking a little bit on him being able to return at least somewhat to that form that I don't think he's been at yet this year.
The thing I think about him specifically with the fit here is that he's such a good match with Russell Wilson. And like, you don't even need to play him all the time. Like, just put him out there when you're on a deep shot play action pass. And he's a decent blocker. He's a big bodied guy. So I think he helps the run game. He's a better blocker than Van Jefferson. He's a really good deep ball runner. Like I think he's a good fit for Russ. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
There we go. Good stuff. All right, before we get out of here, you know the drill. Tell people they can find you.
Wait, there's one more thing I want to touch on before we go. That is the Cleveland Browns announced just before we started recording that they are planning on moving forward with a domed stadium in the suburb of Brook Park. It's right near the Cleveland airport. And I just need to put out here that domed stadiums are for inferior fan bases. And I feel bad for the Browns fans, who I do not believe to be an inferior fan base. No one has watched more bad football ever than the Cleveland Browns fans of the last 30 years. They deserve better than a crappy dome by the airport. And Browns ownership is once again letting them down. and this is disgusting that there could be a dome in the AFC North. It just goes against everything we stand for as a division.
Yep. I couldn't have said it better. Especially once you dialed in on the AFC North part of that. What happened to the game that I love? That's what I want.
Just one more reason to not like Ohio.
December and January football in the AFC North, but it's going to take place in a dome. Are you kidding me?
The weather was like the one advantage Cleveland had left.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're just like they may as well be in the NFC South. They're just another bad dome team.
Yep. Well, add building a dome to the list. It's another mistake by the lake.
This one's farther away from the lake. It's an inland mistake.
But people are going to appreciate the fact that I snuck that in there. So,
I do. I do appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
What a disaster.
Yeah.
Embarrassing.
I'm sick about it. I'm sick about
Cleveland
it.
fans haven't. It's if it's making you feel bad for Browns fans, that's how you know it's bad. Like that's
very true.
That's how you know it's like that. Like they deserve better than that.
Not much better, but yeah.
Than that. Yes.
Not much better, but yeah, they shouldn't have to have a dome. But I know at least 2 Browns fans that are happy about it. So
sick individuals to be happy about that.
Exactly. All right. Now that we're done with that, now that we've said our piece, tell the people they can find you.
At Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there and read the words so I can get paid. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. And, yeah, that's it.
In the comments, hit us with some questions for future episodes.
Yeah. Tomorrow, I'll be here on a Friday because the Steelers are home for a change.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Yeah,
they do that every now and then.
Yeah. So there you go.
So all 3 of us, us and DB.
There you go.
It's going to be a heck of a Friday episode, so be sure to tune in. If you hit that notification bell, you won't miss it. You'll get an alert when the show gets posted. Also, if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe over there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive, just like you can find us on TikTok. Also at Steelers Afternoon Drive. And you can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH for Alan Saunders, and myself. Thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.